Imagine this, you and your spouse spend so much effort, time and money building a property portfolio together, but when things or the marriage goes south, you find yourself in a legal battle over assets, even properties that are not under your name. Sounds unfair? Well, it happens more often than you think. Recently, there's this article in the news highlighting a couple's dispute over their 16 property portfolio after their marriage ended. So, the million-dollar question now is, what's considered yours and what's not yours? Today, we're going to deep dive into the concept of marital assets. What counts as a shared asset, the biggest misconception people have, and how to protect yourself legally. Whether you're a property investor, a business owner, or just starting out in real estate, this is something you need to know. Before we get started, please help me to like this video so that it can reach out to more viewers like yourselves. Thank you! So number one, what are marital assets? In most legal systems, marital assets include any property, income, or investments acquired during the marriage, regardless of whose name they are under. Even if only one spouse's name appears on the property title or investment account, the courts may still classify it as joint marital property. Well, marital assets can include the following, for example, real estate, even if only one spouse is listed, business and company shares, investment and savings accounts, rental property and passive income, as well as cars, jewelries, and even your cryptocurrencies. So what is the key legal principle here? It is not about whose name is on the document. It's about when and how it was acquired. By the way, just for fun fact, do you know that in countries such as Australia or New Zealand, as long as you are in a relationship of more than 2 to 3 years, your partner can actually have a rightful claim to your assets. I think people who are living in these countries, right, may have to do a lot more to safeguard their own assets before entering into a relationship. Let's take a look at the real case from the article from the Straits Times that was mentioned earlier. This couple built an impressive 16 property portfolio over 15 years. They owned landed houses, condos, even overseas properties in Malaysia and the US worth around $10 million Singapore dollars. And when they got divorced, a legal battle arose over who had the rightful claim to what. The husband argued that some properties were under his name only, while the wife argued that she contributed in other ways. So what is the biggest mistake here? There were no clear legal agreements and they were also over-leveraged, meaning that they had to sell the assets quickly at a loss. What can we learn here? Well, even if a property is under only one spouse's name, it can still be classified as a joint marital assets, especially if both parties contributed financially or indirectly. Let's take a look at some common myths and misconceptions. Myth number one, if my spouse's name is not on the title, he or she can't claim it. False. The courts don't just look at names, they look at contributions. Let me give an example here. A husband buys an investment condo under his name, and the wife helps to pay the mortgage, renovates it, or even manages the tenants. In a divorce, she can argue that her indirect contributions make her eligible for a share. But there is also another legal precedent. In Singapore's Women's Charter, the court considers financial and non-financial contributions, including taking care of the home and children. Let me give you guys another example, a real life example, which is me. As you guys know, Paul and I have been in a real estate business together for quite some time. So over the years, we have upgraded from HDB to condo, and then now we're staying in a landed home. So our current home right now is actually under Paul's name only, his whole name. So one day I remember we were having this evening walk and we were chit-chatting, and I was telling him, hey, this house is actually under your name. So does that mean that I don't own any property? I don't have anything. I don't have any share to this property if one day, if anything should happen to the both of us in terms of marriage, okay? So he was like rolling his eye telling me that, don't you know that this is actually a marital asset? Because we acquired this landed property together when we were married after a few years. So this is considered part of a marital asset, and the court will actually assign my share of the property to me, especially so because I have been contributing to our business and taking care of the household and the 3 kids. So as you guys can see, it is not just about the name itself. The Women's Charter will actually protect women like us, especially, if you're contributing directly or indirectly to the assets. Myth number 2, if I bought it before marriage, it stays mine. Well, it really depends, because pre-marriage assets can become joint assets if they are used by the couple. Let me give an example here. A man buys a house before marriage under his sole name. After marriage, they live in it as a family home, using both parties' incomes to pay for the renovation or mortgage. In a divorce, the wife can still claim a share, even though she wasn't there when it was first purchased. So what's the legal reality here? Courts actually consider whether the property was integrated into the marriage financial life. If it was never shared or financially commingled, it may remain a sole asset. Myth number 3, my overseas properties are safe from Singaporean laws. Wrong. The courts can still consider foreign properties as part of the marital pool. Just take the example of the couple from the news. They own houses in Malaysia and the US. Even though these properties were in different legal jurisdictions, they were still included in the divorce settlement. The husband argued that Singapore courts had no authority over foreign assets, but he lost. So what's the key lesson here? While Singapore courts can order property transfers and asset divisions across borders. So what you can do? Structure overseas investment properly using trust or company holdings where necessary. If you're learning something so far, please help us by liking and sharing the video so that more people can benefit from it. Thank you! Let's learn how to protect your assets, which is what we call a prevention strategy. There are a few ways you can go about doing it. First, you can use legal agreements such as prenups and postnup. So a prenuptial or postnuptial agreement can specify who owns what in case of a separation. For example, a business owner can ensure that the company remains separate from the marital assets. Some people may question, do we really need a pre and a postnup? Isn't it not very nice to do so before you got married? Does it question your love or your trust in your partner? Honestly speaking, pre and post-nup is not so common, but it's also not unheard of, especially if, let's say, you are high net worth individuals or you do have significant amount of assets, with you already before marriage itself. It will still be a good thing to safeguard your assets if, like I mentioned earlier, if you are high net worth with significant amount of assets under your name before the marriage itself. But well, it's up to individual, it depends on you guys. The next thing you can do is to keep proper financial records. If you contribute to a property but it's not named as an owner, you may want to keep records of payments. For example, if you paid 50% of a mortgage or you have bank transfer or legal agreements, do keep them, just in case you need to use it in the future. The next thing you can do is to consider holding properties in a trust or a company. So instead of holding assets under your personal name, you may want to use a trust or company structure instead, because this can prevent automatic classification as marital assets. For example, there was a Singaporean investor that I know who set up a holding company to own multiple rental properties, shielding them from personal claims. So if you are a couple and you want to invest in real estate together, here are some do's and don'ts. So let's go through the do's first. First, you want to discuss investment goals very openly. So a couple should be very clear about their intention of investment. Is it for capital appreciation? Is it for rental? So that you both have a common goal in mind. Second, it is good to have a clear exit plan before buying the assets. Be clear on how long you intend to hold the property and when you intend to sell it so you don't go into a dispute in the future. It is also good to keep an emergency cash fund to avoid any forced sales in the future. So what about the don'ts? The first thing you should never do is to assume that names on titles determine ownership. Like just now we went through earlier, it doesn't mean the courts don't consider just the name. They actually consider your contributions, how you have contributed to the property or to the assets directly or indirectly. The number 2 don't is to over leverage your loan. I know it is attractive to take a lot of bank loans or to expand your property portfolio, but all this over leveraging can actually cause you a lot of financial strain and making you want to sell your assets at a loss. You should also not ignore legal documents. Get proper agreements signed or very simply get a lawyer involved. In conclusion, real estate is actually one of the best ways to build wealth. But without proper planning, it can also destroy your wealth. If you are investing as a couple, it is good to have the tough conversations first. Protect your assets, understand the legal side, and make smart, informed decisions. So, what are your thoughts? Have you encountered property disputes in a relationship before? I would like to hear from you. If you do have any questions regarding your shared assets, you can always reach out to us at our number here. And before you leave, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more videos like this. Thank you for joining us today. See you again. Bye bye.